The Whispering Walls. Emma had always loved old houses. There was something about their creaking floors and dusty corners that felt alive, as if they held secrets waiting to be uncovered. So, when she moved into the century-old Victorian house on the edge of town, she wasn't bothered by the way the walls seemed to whisper at night. At first, it was faint, a soft murmur, like distant voices carried on the wind. Emma told herself it was just the house settling, the pipes groaning, or the wind playing tricks. But as the days turned into weeks, the whispers grew louder. They weren't random sounds anymore. They were words. "Help us!" Emma froze the first time she heard it. She was in the kitchen washing dishes when the voice came from the wall behind her. It was soft but clear, a desperate plea that sent chills down her spine. She told herself it was her imagination. But the whispers didn't stop. They came at night, when the house was dark and still. They came during the day when the sunlight streamed through the windows. They were always the same. "Help us! Find us!" Emma tried to ignore them, but the voices grew more insistent. One night, unable to sleep, she pressed her ear to the wall in her bedroom. The whispers were louder there, as if the voices were trapped just on the other side. That's when she noticed it, a small, almost invisible crack in the wallpaper. She peeled it back, revealing a hidden door. Her heart raced as she opened it, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. The air was cold and damp as she descended, the whispers growing louder with every step. At the bottom, she found a small, hidden room. The walls were covered in names, hundreds of them carved into the wood. In the center of the room was an old, dusty journal. Emma opened it, her hands trembling. The pages were filled with entries from people who had lived in the house over the years. Each one told the same story. They had heard the whispers, followed them, and found this room. But none of them had ever left. The last entry was dated just a week before Emma moved in. It read, "They're coming for me. I can hear them in the walls. If you're reading this, run. Don't let them take you too." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind her. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. "Stay with us!" She pounded on the door, screaming for help, but no one came. The walls closed in around her, the whispers drowning out her cries. And then, silence. The twist. The story ends with a new family moving into the house. As they unpack, the little girl looks up at her mother and says, "Mommy, do you hear that? The walls are whispering." The camera pans to the wall where a new name has been carved into the wood. Emma, the clock that counted down. When Sarah inherited her grandmother's antique shop, she thought it would be a fresh start. The shop was filled with curiosities, old books, dusty trinkets, and a peculiar grandfather clock that stood in the corner. The clock was beautiful, with intricate carvings and a face that seemed to glow in the dim light. But there was something strange about it. The clock didn't tell time. Instead of numbers, its face was marked with symbols Sarah didn't recognize. And instead of ticking, it made a soft, rhythmic, clicking sound, like a countdown. When Sarah asked about it, her grandmother's lawyer simply said, "Don't wind it up, ever." But curiosity got the better of her. One night, after closing the shop, Sarah found the key to the clock hidden in a drawer. She hesitated, remembering the lawyer's warning, but the clock seemed to call to her. She inserted the key and turned it. The clock came to life with a deep, resonant chime. The hands began to move, but instead of pointing to hours, they spun wildly before settling on a symbol at the top of the face. The clicking grew louder, more urgent. That's when Sarah noticed the shadows. At first, they were faint, dark shapes moving in the corners of the room. But as the clicking grew louder, the shadows became more defined. They looked like people, their forms twisted and unnatural. They didn't move toward her, but they watched, their hollow eyes fixed on the clock. Sarah tried to stop the clock, but the key was stuck. She pulled at the hands, but they wouldn't budge. The clicking grew faster, and the shadows began to close in. Desperate, Sarah grabbed a hammer and smashed the clock's face. The glass shattered, and the clicking stopped. The shadows vanished. Relieved, Sarah stepped back, her heart pounding. But as she turned to leave, she heard it, a single, deafening click. The clock's hands began to move again, faster this time. The symbols on the face glowed brighter, and the shadows returned, darker and more menacing than before. Sarah ran for the door, but it was locked. The shadows closed in, their whispers filling the air. Time's up. The twist. The story ends with a new owner taking over the antique shop. As they clean the store, they find the grandfather clock in the corner, its face unbroken and its hands still. The new owner picks up the key from the drawer and smiles. "What a beautiful clock," they say, inserting the key.